It's 3:30 on this January 10th, and our Planning Commission is in session at this time, and I'd like to begin, first of all, with welcoming our newest Planning Commission member, Lynn Schnee, to our group. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
And our next thing is the reorganization of the Planning Commission. You may notice Al Cappers is not present today, but he has indicated he'd be willing, if the motion is made in a second, to continue as the chair of the Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we nominate Al as the chairman.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support to have Al Cappers continue as chair. Should call the roll.
We just usually do voice.
We just do voice? Okay.
All in favor.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, our next, and this person will preside over the rest of the meeting, and that is to elect a vice chair. Would somebody like to put somebody in nomination
I
as
will
vice chair?
nominate Mr. McGarry.
Is there a
Second.
Second, and I assume that Mr. McGarry will accept if we all say aye.
I don't think he has a choice, but
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jim, you are going to be presiding over this meeting. We do have, if you want to, the next item there is to appoint somebody to the Board of Zoning Appeals that Tom Force had been with many years. So would somebody, I think we should do the same, but Jim, it's your meeting now.
Is there any nominations open for, anyone anybody wants to make for the appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I'll move that Larry Wolke be appointed.
And I'll second.
All in favor of Larry Wolke representing Planning Commission on the Board of Zoning Appeals?
Aye.
Aye.
Let me ask a quick question, and it just occurred to me. There is no compensation with...
There's no-
Okay.
No.
Because that creates a PERS
No.
problem with your work.
No.
Let-
Big donation. Okay, next item on the agenda is the minutes from December 27th. I believe they were attached to our emails, and you have them before you. Is there any action that the commission wants to take?
I move they be approved as printed.
Is there a second?
Second.
D. All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Is that okay to say aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. The next item of business is the Downtown Riverfront Overlay District. It's removed from the table for discussion. Is this something the commission would entertain rearranging and moving this to the last item on the agenda in order to take care of the other business beforehand?
You can do that with
You can do
consent.
that whatever you want.
Well, I'd like to do that then, move the Downtown Riverfront Overlay project down to the next two items. So the next item would be number 5, review the dedication of the right-of-way by Kettering Health Network, the 600 block of West Main Street and 700 block of West Water Street. Does the staff have a report on this?
This had been on a previous discussion because of the planned development, and at this point, the engineers have finally worked out the details, and the plat as included in your packets is ready to go. The major change from the last one that you had seen is to the properties to the north of Water Street, which were part of the same purchase that Kettering Health Network made, and they're dedicating right-of-way for adjusting those intersections as well as the Main Street. And this is dedication of right-of-way only.
And it does require recommendation to council.
Right, this is just a recommendation to council for the recommending approval or denial.
Yes, of the dedication, acceptance of the dedication of the right-of-way.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval or
Second.
acceptance.
Mrs. Knight, is there a vote?
I'm sorry, I don't know who made the second.
I did.
Larry?
Okay. Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Snee. Yes. The motion is approved.
Okay, next item, number 6, is the rezoning of part in lot 9891, located north of Finsbury Road from AR Agricultural Residential to R3B Single Family Residential District. The owner is Halifax Land Company. Does staff have a report on this?
Yes, I do. As you said, the applicant is Nottingham Development, Inc. Jessica Meinsinger, who's president, is also in the audience with us today. The owner is Halifax Land Company, which is Frank Harlow. And for the record, we do have his consent, of course, for the application to rezone. Getting into the subject, the property location is located just north of Finsbury Lane in the Sherwood neighborhood. This would be, if you're looking at a map, this would be west of the Pickwa-Troy Road, east of Nottingham Development, as well as south. I provide a map with a star on it, so I think everyone is oriented. The parcel was recently subdivided into 8 acres, currently zoned agricultural residential. The request is to rezone that to R3B single family. AR has a minimum lot size of 5 acres. R3B is 12,000 square feet. Going on down, you'll see that the area is has zoning to the east, OC1, has AR to the north, R4 to the west and south. Of course, west and south, our neighborhoods are already built out. And then the AR is to the north is a strip behind Nottingham and also to the east of Nottingham. The property at OC1 is of course undeveloped with future development plans by Halifax. Nottingham Development has plans, of course, to finish out that 8 acres with the R3B 12,000 square foot lots. We're hoping to get about 11 lots there. This seems to be consistent with the surrounding land uses, certainly. You have Nottingham Road that's already stubbed there coming off of Finsbury. Looking at the criteria for the rezoning, as I just mentioned, the surrounding land uses are consistent. The intent of finishing out that subdivision is consistent. And looking at the comprehensive plan, it really addresses more the north side area, but comprehensive plan is in support, I would say, of the redevelopment. And the rest of the criteria for rezoning property includes utilities, which of course we can supply, and it goes in to talk about if there's a need for a, I think, a change. It does not correct any issue or error with the zoning code, so we're okay there. So staff's recommendation would be to first, not recommend a public hearing at planning commission level, and to recommend the rezoning.
Is there any questions from the planning commission? If not, first order is to entertain a motion to decide whether or not to hold a public hearing for the planning commission.
I'll move that the planning commission not hold a public hearing.
Second,
Second.
Larry and Patrick. Okay, so the vote is yes, that there will not be a public hearing. Correct.
Yes. Call the roll.
No, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed. Yes. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Motion is adopted. Commission will not hold a public hearing.
The second item of business for rezoning is the commission is to make a recommendation to the city council.
I'll move that we recommend approval.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion is adopted. This will be recommended to the planning commission. A public hearing will be set.
Okay. Now we'll go back to item number 4, which is downtown riverfront overlay districts. The first item of business is to remove this from the table from the December 27th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to remove from the table. We have a roll call vote.
Yes. Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Wolke.
Yes.
Item is removed from table.
Okay, does the staff have a report to present?
Yes, in your packets, the changes that we've made since the project was tabled at the last meeting are printed in red. The majority of them start on page 10 and relate to process. There are some wordsmithing changes in other sections, again, that are in red. And I'll point out to you that one task that remains to be done on page 1, in red, you see the description generally of the area that's shown on the map. For ordinance purposes, we'll need to have a more precise description than the general, and staff will be working on that.
But Jim, that description will match the map that was provided to us.
Correct. The map that Planning Commission has is the map that we're using. No changes have been made to that. Page 10, the process changes that were discussed briefly at the last meeting include Planning Commission having the ability to, again, decide on public hearings, but it's much more described than it had been in the previous language. There would be 2 meetings at a minimum, because it would first come to Planning Commission, any application would, for Planning Commission's initial consideration, and then it would be held over to a second meeting, which could include public hearing as well. The Planning Commission then would have the ability to slow the process, if you will, to get additional input, is the concept. And the new language on page 11, as you'll see, also provides for notice to the neighboring property owners so that they would be aware of this and be able to react once the project is known.
I note in the recommendation, you're still recommending this, council pass this as an emergency. Is the law director okay with that?
Grant?
I'm sorry? Are you okay with the recommending council pass this as an emergency?
I believe that the consensus was that, I believe the recommendation that it would not be passed as an emergency since it's, a change to the zoning code.
Okay, well, that's the recommendation from staff.
That it is an emergency. It was my understanding from last meeting that they withdrew that request to present it as an emergency.
Yeah, I think Tim just missed that. It's our call.
Okay, the first item we would have to undertake for business is the decision on whether or not to hold a public hearing on the level of the planning commission. Do I have any motion from the staff, or from the commission?
That would be to not hold a public, whether or not there'll be a public hearing on this amendment to the zoning code.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is adopted. The Planning Commission will not consider holding a public hearing on this particular amendment to the zoning code if you send it on to council.
Okay, the second item of business is for the commission to make a recommendation to Trace Central City Council on the adoption and approval of the zoning district change, or the addition of the zoning district, overlay district.
I would note that I had a number of reservations about this proposal, but I've discussed it with the administration, and I think they made a good faith effort to address some of my concerns, so I'm willing to go along with
So is it made a motion for him?
it. Okay, I'll move that we recommend this to council for approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion?
May I just clarify that according to the law director, this goes forward and is, because it's a zoning measure, it takes 3 readings and goes through the zoning process?
That's correct.
Just want to clarify.
Without emergency, therefore it's subject to referendum.
Your motion does not include emergency recommendation, correct?
But it also does include a public hearing because it is a
Because
zoning
it's a
measure
zoning matter,
at
that's
the
correct.
council level. Thank you.
He is nodding.
So
For the-
we're
for
not
the record, he is
recommending, we're not
nodding.
recommending emergency.
Well, that's not part of his motion, so that,
Yes, I am not recommending that there be an emergency as part of the recommendation.
So that's an amendment to your motion.
If that's so needed, yes.
I think so. We all set for a vote?
Of course. Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
This motion is adopted. This will be recommended on to council, and council will be holding a public hearing on this as it is an amendment to the zoning code.
Okay, is there any other business from the staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for dismissal.
Motion for dismissal?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Adjourned.
Because that's not
No, it's a-
a provision thing.